Lahaya Tilakam, Ab name, Nika Mitlite Kitimat. Hello, everyone. My name is Ab. I come from Kitimat, and welcome to the fifth and final installment of this Introduction to Chinook Jargon course that I've been working on. I'm going to open up a document here and walk you through what I had planned for this week's lesson. So I'm just going to share my screen. So you should be seeing the slideshow. And I'm going to just move things around a little bit here so there's nothing in my way. And going to maximize the slideshow, and we'll start going through it. So this is the fifth class of the first session of the Introduction to Chinook Jargon. So what I wanted to look at today was pronouns. We'll start off with that. There's a couple more things I wanted to share, but we'll start with pronouns in Chinook Wawa. So you can see up here, I've got three different rows of words. So in the first row, we have the word Nika. Nika. So you've heard me say this word quite a few times during this course. So Nika means I or me. Nika. So this is a singular form, so it only refers to me, the person who's speaking. If you want to use a pluralized form of that word, you would say Nasaika. I've also heard Nsaika, where they drop the E after the N. So either way you want to say it, that's fine. You could say Nasaika or Nsaika. And that means we or us. Next we have Micah. Micah means you. Again, it's a singular form. It's one person. The plural form is Masaika. Masaika or Msaika. And that means you all. So it's a pluralized form of you. Next we have Yaka. Yaka. So this can mean either he or she or it. So it could refer to a person, he or she. It could refer to an animal, it, or an object. So that's singular. Plural is klaska or tlaska. Either way you want to say it, that's fine. And that means they. So that's a pluralized form. So down here underneath the table, you can see the first row represents first person pronouns. The second row is second person pronouns. Third row is third person pronouns. So first person is me. Second person is you. Third person is somebody else. That's the way you can think of that. So you can see here with Yaka, meaning he or she, that means that there's no distinction made in regards to gender. So you wouldn't really specify whether the person is male or female. You would just say Yaka. That would mean he or she. That's the singular, or klaska, meaning they, he or she. So that's a quick look at pronouns in Chinook Wawa, and that's basically how it works. Next, I wanted to take a look at time. So there's different ways to refer to certain time periods in Chinook Wawa. So the first word that we're looking at here is ankari. Ankari. So this refers to the past. So you can think of the word then. Next is alta or alda. So sometimes you can say it with the letter T, alta, or you can soften that T into a D sound, alda. Either way you want to pronounce it, that's fine. But that refers to the present or now. And then alki or athki refers to the future. So that means later. So ankari is the past. Alta is present. Alki is future. And there's certain ways you can change your pronunciation of the words ankari and alki or athki. And you can see the first bullet point here reads, the first syllable of past and future tense words can be extended to show a longer time period. So if you say ankari, that means a long time ago. Ankari. Whereas if you just say ankari, that just means like a little while ago. So ankari was recently in the past. Ankari is a longer time in the past. You can do the same with alki or athki. So you could say alki. So that means a long time in the future, as opposed to alki, which is coming up pretty soon. So that's something you can do to make reference to longer time periods. You can extend the first syllable of the past or future tense words. Something else I wanted to point out is that these time markers often appear at the beginning of a sentence. So that's something that I think is really helpful for people to understand. When you start reading full sentences or start creating sentences on your own, you might have the past or present or future tense at the beginning of the sentence. So ankari, alda, or alki might be at the front of the sentence, depending on the context. There are such situations where they might be at the end of a sentence, but again, it depends on what kind of phrase is being spoken. Usually, if you're making a statement, you'd be putting the time marker at the beginning of the sentence. Whereas if you're asking a question, you would put it at the end. So I've got some examples of different sentences using the pronouns and the different time markers in Chinook Wawa, and we'll see that on the next slide. So the first example sentence here that I have is Naika tigi makamak. Naika tigi makamak. That means I want food. The next sentence reads Maika tigi makamak. Maika tigi makamak. That means you want food. And the next one, Yaka tiki makamak. Yaka tiki makamak. So that means he or she or it wants food. So Naika tiki makamak, I want food. Maika tiki makamak, you want food. Yaka tiki makamak, he, she, or it wants food. And something else you might notice is that these sentences follow the English sentence structure. So English works on what we call SVO. That stands for subject, verb, object. So what this means is that in the typical English sentence, the subject of the sentence comes first. So in this case, this would be Nika, Micah, or Yaka. So who is the sentence about? That will come first in these sentences. The V, the verb, comes next. That's tiggy or tiki, which is to want. And then the object comes last. So the object is food, or what does the subject want? Or what is what's the thing that's being affected by the verb? And that in this case is makamak, which is food. So you have Nika, which is the subject, tiki, which is the verb, makamak, the object. I want food, SVO. Next, you have Micah, subject, Tiki, verb, Muckamuck, object. You want food, SVO. And then Yaka, subject, Tiki, verb, Muckamuck, object. He, she, or it wants food, SVO. So those are some examples of simple sentences that you might see or hear or use in everyday speech. In the next slide, we're going to change these sentences a little bit, and we'll see how we're changing it on the next slide, which is right here. So in these sentences, I've added a time marker to the beginning. So this first sentence is An kari naika tigi makamak. An kari naika tiki makamak. I wanted food. So an kari refers to the past. So if you look at this in the most literal sense, an kari, you can kind of think of it as meaning before. Naika means I, tiki, want, makamak, food. So if you transcribe or translate the sentence in the most literal sense, it would be before I want food. So this ankari is changing tiki into a past tense. So instead of want, now we're saying wanted. I wanted food. The next sentence, ankari maika tigi makamak. Ankari maika tigi makamak. You wanted food. And then the next sentence, ankari yaka tiki makamak. Ankari yaka tiki makamak. He or she or it wanted food. So the tense marker, in this case, ankari, comes first to put the sentence in the past. So the end of the sentence is exactly the same as we saw before. Naika tigi makamak. We're adding ankari to turn that into past tense. And then the last bullet point there, you can see, I mentioned this in the previous slide, word order can change depending on the context. So these are some kind of simpler sentences that you might see. And just going back, Naika tigi makamak, I want food. An kari naika tigi makamak, I wanted food. You could also change this an kari to alki or athki. So you would say an kari naika tigi makamak. That will basically put that in the future, and it will mean I will I will want food. So it might be late at night, and then you're talking about tomorrow morning. When you wake up, you would say, Alki naika tigi makamak, I will want food in the future. So that would be like the next day. So that's something that you could think about in terms of changing the time period that you're talking about in your sentences. In this case, you probably wouldn't use alta because this sentence, naika tigi makamak, is already in present tense. So adding alta would probably be redundant. So you would basically be saying, now I want food, which if you just said naika tiki makamak, it would mean basically the same thing, I want food now. So that's kind of the way you can think about it in terms of the sentence structure. Usually when you're making a statement, the tense marker will start the sentence, and then you'll have your regular sentence structure following that. So those are some example sentences they might see in Chinook Wawa. The other thing that I wanted to share is this website that I came across recently. This website is called BC Chinook Jargon, and there's a link to it here. I'm not going to click on it right now. I just want to go on to the next slide before I actually bring you to that website. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I've added some classic dictionaries to the website that I created. So we'll take a look at that. There's the website address here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just going to stop sharing my screen for a quick moment here. And I'm just going to minimize my presentation and I'll bring you to the first website, which will come up when I share my screen again, going back to my web browser. So this is the website that I was talking about just a minute ago. This is called BC Chinook Jargon. So you can see up here, it says in 2014, Jay Powell was the only remaining fluent speaker of Chinook Jargon in BC. I do want to mention that I know Jay Powell personally. He was doing some work up here in Kitimat with our language, and also he was doing something called TUS, which is called a traditional use study. So he was interviewing a lot of elders and other knowledge keepers here in Kitimat about their use of the land here in Haisla territory. So I started working in the band office around the time that he was at the end of his project that he was working on. But I did get a chance to get to know him while he was working here. So it's been a long time since I've spoken to him or seen him in person. But yeah, so he is very knowledgeable about Chinook jargon. And you can see here in the website, it says he had learned it from elders while he was creating dictionaries and learning materials for endangered West Coast languages. He met Sam Sullivan, former mayor of Vancouver, and told him of his concern for the language. Sullivan committed to doing his best to revive the language in BC. And Sam is also somebody that I know through the Chinook Jargon courses, the course that I was taking. And yeah, so I've talked to him a little bit through that course. And you can see here there's a couple of videos on the homepage of this website. So that's Jay there speaking during a workshop. There's another video here where Sam interviews Jay and they talk about Chinook Wawa. And Jay shares a bit of his knowledge about the language and actually sings some songs in Chinook jargon as well. So that's really interesting. And you can see here some other posts, some other videos. And I'm going to go back up to the top of the page. There's a menu up on top of the page. So there's different documents that have been shared. I believe this website was started by Sam. I'm not sure if he maintains it, but I believe that he is involved with this website. This next heading is called Mamuk Kwolin, which means to listen. On this first tab, this is what I was talking about in terms of the class. The course was called the SNAS sessions. And that's actually how I found out about David Robertson and the work that he's doing, and also Sam. Jay Powell is in a couple of these videos. He joined in on a few of these classes. So you can see the classes. If I go back up to the top of the page here, the most recent classes are from last year, right up until December of 2023. So they were having these Zoom sessions and they were recording them and then uploading them to YouTube. And I've watched most of these. You can see it actually starts in 2020. So you can go to this section of the website and go through and watch these videos if you want to see more about the about Chinook Jargon, and you can get to see David Robertson talking about his knowledge of the language. And there's a reference to him here. Eventually, the group were able to bring in consulting linguist David Douglas Chinook Man Robertson, PhD, as an expert to help direct their studies. So this was the group that was getting together on Zoom and talking about Chinook Jargon. Then in mid 2020, they began to record their study sessions, realizing they would be of value to other Chinook Wawa students and researchers. So that's interesting. There's another section here called Chaco Kumtux, which means to learn, or to, it basically means come to know, if you were taking it in the most literal sense. Chaco Kumtux means come to know. And there's a few different sections there. Ikta Chaco, there's some more information there. Tlaska Nasaika, about us. So there's a contact page here. You can get in touch with somebody that is involved with the website if you have any questions or anything else that you want to pass along, some encouragement. I'm very thankful that I found this website. I just found it recently, as if you remember in the second class, I shared some resources. I didn't actually know about this website back then, so I wasn't able to share it, but I discovered it just recently, so I'm able to share it with you now. So that's a really interesting resource. And then the next tab I have open here, this is my website, Conaway Wawa. And this is a page that I just added recently. This is what I call classic dictionaries. And you can see here I wrote, here are some dictionaries from the late 1800s to early 1900s. They might find helpful. I did some editing to remove some blank pages from each of them. They are in black and white because the full color copies seem to be slow to load. You can view them on this page or download them. So I got these from archive.org. That's where I found them. And when I go to that website, they'll list different resources that they have on there. And they'll have different formats available. So they will have like full color versions of documents. They'll have black and white versions of them. They'll have like the actual text, which you can copy and paste into a text editor. So I went with the black and white because of the reason I just listed here. I noticed that in the full color, the pages seem to take a long time to load, whereas in black and white, they seem to load faster when you open them up in a PDF viewer. And also, there were a lot of blank pages, and there's like, they'll often include like the original cover, like the leather cover. They'll have that as the first page, and then there will be blank pages and other pages that aren't really relevant. So that's something that I tend to do when I download documents, is if there are any blank pages, I'll get rid of those myself, just because it just makes things easier, makes things a little quicker to go through instead of scrolling through a lot of blank pages that don't really add anything. It's easier just to get rid of those. So that's what I did in my PDF editor that I have. The online Conaway dictionary is based on, or Conaway Wawa dictionary is based on this first dictionary called A Dictionary of the Chinook Jargon. This was published by George Gibbs in 1863. So when you go to the Conaway Wawa webinary page, I'll just scroll through the document here. It's based on this document. This was written by George Gibbs. You can see here he talks about the different languages that actually make up Chinook Wawa. So the actual Chinook language, or Chinook proper, he says there's about 200 words coming from there. Other languages include Nootka, That's what they used to call it. It's now called Nuchanuth. Nuchanuth. There's about 24 words from there. You can see there's other languages listed, French, English, and so on and so forth. So he talks a little bit about the history of Chinook jargon. He does some comparisons between English, Chinook proper, and some other indigenous languages here on the Pacific Northwest coast. And there's a bibliography there of documents that were available at that point. And the website or the webinar site that I set up is very much like this, where part one is Chinook Wawa to English words. That's what he has listed here. You can see aha, and it's kind of very similar to the way I have the webinar website laid out. I tried to stay as close to this document as I could. I'm actually thinking of going back and taking out some things here and there just to make it a little bit more concise, because I call basically the dictionary that I'm working on is called Chinook Jargon Compendium. So it's meant to collect different language resources. I started with this one. So I'm going to be taking out a few things here and there that might not be relevant, and people can actually go here to this document if they want to actually look at the original material and get more information. So that is the George Gibbs Dictionary. The next one is called The Chinook Jargon and How to Use It. This is by George C. Shaw and it's published in 1909. So a quick look here. Here's the introduction, talks a little bit about the history of the Chinook Wawa. Oops, scrolled a little bit too far there. And his layout is a little bit different. So I'll go to where he starts actually listing words. So this is where it starts. So he has words starting in Chinook jargon with the letter A. You can see that this whole thing here, this whole paragraph, basically the first page, it looks like it has to do with this one word, which is oncuddy. So that's a lot of information. And it goes on until about halfway through the second page there before it starts talking about the second word. So again, I'm going to be adding information from the George C. Shaw Dictionary into the webinar website. But again, I'm not going to be adding all of this information, just anything that might be a little bit different than what George Gibbs said in his previous dictionary. That's what I'm going to be adding to the website that I created. And then there's another one called The Chinook Book by W.S. Phillips. This was published in 1913. So he has a preface there. He has an explanation, which is kind of an introductory section. And then his layout is a little bit different, where he has Chinook jargon words listed. And then he goes into a fair bit of information. One thing I like about his dictionary is that he actually breaks it down into more kind of a phonetic pronunciation, where he actually explains the different sounds of, he breaks the words down into different parts and kind of explains how each part is represented in speech. So here with ah, he just says ah as in fate, and dwelled on as a level, sustained, accented sound, ending with a short, sudden breath of H. So he explains a little bit more about the sound, and then he talks about the meaning of it. Or in this one here, alta. So A as in at in the first syllable, A as in father in the second syllable, and the accent goes on AL, which is the first syllable. So alta, alta, with a slight breath sound at the of the H at the end. So that's some helpful information on pronunciation of the different words. So I'll bring you towards the end part of the dictionary here. So we have T words listed, W words, and then the main part of the dictionary ends there, and he talks about counting in Chinook jargon. So he lists the numbers and then talks a little bit about counting from 10 to 20 up there, and then explained a little bit more about how it works. Talks about counting to about 100, some information there. This is really helpful. He has a list of fewest words needed to carry on an ordinary conversation in Chinook. So you have Ankari, Alta, Alki, Ah, Ana, I, Ats. So those are some basic words that you can use in Chinook jargon. So that's pretty helpful. It has a couple of pages there of words. The next section is words in common use in associated groups. So words that are related to each other. So the word kata has a couple of different meanings. It could mean how. It could also mean why. You can see here, hayu can mean many or much. Sahali can mean up or over. Nika can mean I, me, my, or mine. Asaika can mean our, ours, or us. So that's some really helpful information there. And then he lists the numbers again. He has words that sound alike but have different meanings. So icht means one, ikta means what, iktas means things. Inapu means louse or flea. Inapu means muskrat. So those are also really helpful, really interesting. He has some examples of ordinary conversation in Chinook jargon with English translations. So he has the last few pages here where he shares what could be a typical conversation in Chinook jargon. So that's also very helpful. He has a couple of different examples there. So that is on this page, which I just added to the website. You can see the listing here in the heading in the menu. And I'll stop sharing my screen there. So I have about 5 minutes left here. And that's basically what I wanted to go over for today. And I mentioned this is the last class I'm going to be having. I decided that this is the last one. So originally I thought maybe I'd have different groups of classes, like this would be session 1, then I'd have session 2 and another 5 classes, maybe a session 3 somewhere down the line. But the truth is I have a lot of other projects that I'm working on. So doing these classes is taking up a fair bit of my time. So if I stop doing them, then I'll have more time for the other projects that I'm working on. So yeah, so this will be the last one. I might continue on at some other point, maybe a few months from now or maybe next year. I'm not really sure, but I'll take it as it comes. I'll try and figure things out as I go along. But as I said before, I have a lot of other things that I want to work on. So I want to focus on those. And yeah, so not having these classes will help me focus on those. I might jump in every now and then with some updates, like on the webinary site or the Conaway Wawa website. I might do that from time to time, just share a little bit of information of something that I might have added to it, or maybe something that I've learned recently that might be helpful to people. So it's not going to be any kind of a regular thing. They'll pop up from time to time. I do plan on adding a little bit more to the blog on the website. So as it stands now, I just have the one post in the blog. So I do plan on talking a little bit more about the creation of the the Webinary website and also the Conway Wawa website as well. So be sharing some progress reports there and some of my thoughts and experiences as I've been creating those. And again, just sharing little bits and pieces of Chinook jargon that I've been learning that might be helpful to other people from time to time. So that's kind of my plans for the future. So I want to say Hayumasi, which means many thanks. Hayumasi for joining me. As I mentioned before, I'm not an expert in Chinook jargon. I'm kind of a beginner and just wanted to share what I've been learning about the language so far. I've been learning a lot more over the past year or so, and that's been really interesting and encouraging. And just wanted to share some of my resources with you that I've come across and I've created. And I'm hoping that these will help you on your learning journey as you're learning Chinook jargon or Chinook Wawa. So again, I'm hoping this is all very helpful to you, and this is enough to get you started with Chinook jargon. So I've given you some resources that you can use. You can do your own study about Chinook jargon, and there's lots of different places you can look up information. So hopefully you'll look into those and check those out. They've helped me a lot in terms of furthering my knowledge of Chinook Wawa. And with that, I will say Othki later.